The Minnesota Wild had their development camp this past weekend, bringing a ton of prospects in their system together to see how things are done at the NHL level. Which players are we most excited to see down the road? We debate today on Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is right. Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any of our video content or episodes throughout the course of the week. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we talk about some prospects that we're excited to see down the road for the Minnesota Wild. We'll try to lay out some timelines, and we'll react to some of the comments we heard from various Wild prospects at development camp this past weekend. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider. For those who are tuning in for the first time today, we welcome you on board. Make sure to follow and subscribe and stick with us through the rest of the offseason into next year as well. If you're one of the everydayers who tunes in every single day of the week, we're glad to have you back and glad to have Alex Micheletti back with us here on a Monday edition of Locked On Wild after the short week for 4th of July. Everybody getting back into the swing of things. Minnesota Wild had their development camp. Alex, it looked like a pretty resounding success. It was in tandem with the crazy game of hockey. Had just a ton of great promotions. Big day for Zach Halverson, who had quite a few highlights out there that you can find on Twitter. Shout out to Zach. And just looked like a lot of fun for the organization and just a fun weekend in general.
Yeah, resounding success. It was really cool to just see all the different celebrities out there during that game. Greg Ostertag, seeing a 7-footer on skates. That was crazy. And seeing all the European prospects coming over for development camp. Nice to see Yurov and Ohgren. And so, yeah, really, really fun weekend for sure.
We had a chance to see Charlie Stramel too, and he talked to the media. We'll talk about those comments here in a little bit. Before we get to the just players that we're excited to see, because there are a lot of them, I did think it was great to see some guys that we don't necessarily think of as prospects. I mean, it is crazy. The Brock Faber timeline has accelerated to the point that I don't know that I necessarily think of him as a prospect, because like the expectation is he's going to be on the team, but to see him take part in all of these events too and kind of be one of those faces leading the charge for this group of players was really fun to see. It was fun to see Mason Shaw part of the events as well. His contract situation still up in the air, but fun to see him still being part of the organization. And I was not shocked that Joe Mauer just looked like he belonged out on skates. I call me crazy, but I think you probably could have found a way for Mauer had he gone the hockey route to carve out a nice little NHL career. He's just a natural at everything that he does.
Yeah, he was like, all-state football, all-state basketball. I mean, he struck out one time in high school. It just, yeah, what a talent. I mean, amazing baseball career, and fun to see him out and about too in the public.
I want to talk about the Ohgren and Yurov just in general, because I think Ohgren delivered the line of the weekend in saying that, he's going to be playing overseas this year, but then the expectation for him is to come to the United States and to win a job out of camp. This man has his sights set on making the NHL roster next season. And so if we're talking about prospects that we want to see, I think he's vaulted quite a bit up my list, because I got to say, I love that confidence.
Yeah, you don't really see that from Swedish guys. Usually they're pretty quiet, and so you have to love that confidence. And that's a guy that knows that there's playing time out there, with with the buyout situations, so there's spots to be filled. And when he's that young too, it's nice to see that there's no fear either. He believes in himself, that which is huge too, because there's always confidence issues, with younger players. Do they think they're ready or not? And so, if he has a really good season, this upcoming one, watch out, because that means he thinks he is ready. So it is the North American game is a lot different than European. So we'll see, but you gotta love it for sure.
Yeah, I just love having players in the system
Mhm.
who show the confidence that they're going to go out and do what they need to do to put themselves in a
Right.
position. Because assuming that the Wilds just let players go, like Marcus Foligno,
Hmm.
like Matt Zuccarello, assuming that those guys are allowed to finish their contracts out and that's it, there are going to be spots on this team to be won by players who will try to do what Mason Shaw did last season, where you have guys that are down to the final cuts in training camp that either come close to winning a job outright or they get called up and they never go back down. Like, having guys that want to do that is great because, and it's not to say that having players who don't exude that confidence outright, like, are just kind of those like silent snakes in the weeds that are just going to pounce when the opportunity presents itself. It just, to me, I just like seeing players show that outward confidence of, like, one of those spots is mine and I'm going to grab it when I get over here.
Yeah, all these guys at the development camp, they should watch Brandon Duhaim's tape, Mason Shaw's, and all the guys that were on the fourth line this past season. They earned their way to the NHL. Nothing was handed to them. They worked their butts off. When they were all going together, it was just phenomenal. And um, that goes to show you, I mean, the hard work that it takes to not only get the roster spot but keep it, because we talk about this all the time, the guys that are the tweeners or the guys that just like can never get over the hump. Look how hard it's been for Adam Beckman to get a full-time spot. And so when you're up, you you can't take it for granted, because you could go right back down to Iowa for the rest of your career. So you ask Duhaime, Shaw. I mean, Shaw's had to overcome 3 ACLs, now a fourth. So it's hard to keep your spot in the NHL, and don't ever take it for granted, for sure.
I want to next dive into some of the comments that we had from Charlie Stramel and Danila Yurov as well. Some
Hmm.
interesting things as to what they're working on in their game this season, and a little bit as to kind of what the expectation will be for Stramel as he continues to develop. So we'll continue to digest development camp on today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Lots of great props this week with the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game coming up. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. For the everydayers, we are going to take a look back at a few of the early drafts for the Minnesota Wild, thanks to some redrafts that have happened, to see if we like what the pick is suggested based off of what the Wild ended up with. So we're going to do some more draft comparisons here throughout the course of the week. So make sure that you don't miss out on those by subscribing and following on your favorite podcast platforms. Continuing our chat with Alex Micheletti today. Alex, we had a chance to hear from Charlie Stramel, and I do have to put myself on blast. I believe when he was drafted, I was under the impression it was Stramel. Have heard since it's Stramel. So put me on the chopping block for that one. But great to hear from Stramel, getting a chance to mix it up with the rest of the Wild prospects. It sounds like the plan for him is to work on being kind of that net front power forward type player, which certainly fits his size. And I'm really excited, as I'm sure you are as well, to just see how he does, not to rub salt in a wound, but to see how he does with Mike Hastings at Wisconsin. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, as we all know, I'm a huge Mankato guy. Graduated from there and worked for the team when Mike was there, or at the beginning of it. And yeah, he's a phenomenal coach. He's gotten countless undrafted guys to make it to the NHL, and so with the coaching change, we'll see. Hopefully, he can get his scoring up from what it was, before college, and then he had a successful World Junior too. So maybe they can get find that scoring touch, and I think they'll really help him, like you said, in front of the net, and just ways to use his size and strength. I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys with with his size, the way he tested, that's what drew them to him, and so yeah, we'll just see. It's it's a good for him to be in the college hockey game, because he'll be going up against men to up to 25, 26, and so
Yeah.
he was a true freshman last year, and so he's still growing into his body, and more room or more time in the weight room will help even get him even bigger and stronger, and working with that coaching staff is elite. Todd Connaught and Nick Oliver, who was at St. Cloud, and yeah, so it's it's a good crew, and I think the Big Ten is the best college hockey conference in college hockey, and so he's going up against some elite talent and guys that he'll probably see in the NHL as well once he gets a shot. So yeah, all positives for him going forward.
Yeah, most definitely. And it was a hideous Wisconsin team,
Yeah.
His first year. So we're gonna sweep that one. So he's working on his power forward skill set, as I think was the exact quote that was used throughout the weekend. We also had a chance to hear from Danila Yurov. He is on a similar trajectory. The hope is that he will be able to come over to the United States with Liam Ohgren, and I believe Marat Hustendinov is still on that same track too. Yurov has been working on, in addition to his great offensive skill set, he has been working on his physicality along the boards as well. And so we're seeing these guys who have this good offensive game being taught the parts of the rest of the game, the physicality side, the mixing it up, getting dirty down low, which I think is exactly how this should be done. Is you should go for players who have, those offensive instincts, have everything that you would want that you can't teach, and then just coach them up. Like, just coach them up, add whatever else you need, but just get those bits that you like, those skills that you want, and just keep adding to it over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, and there's even thought that Yurov could be a future center too, which uh, sign me up for that. With his skill, Judd Brackett was talking about it, that they see him as a future center possibility, and so that would be huge. Imagine him getting to play next to Kaprizov at some point.
Well, him and Kirill are they're tight. Kirill is checking in on his guys, which I think is another thing that we like too. Is he is wanting to see how these guys are doing before they get to the NHL level, and so we worry about the effect of what's going to happen when Zuccarello leaves. He's not going to be here forever.
No.
And so at some point, you're going to have to deal with that post Zuccarello life. I think Kirill is going to be fine with this next wave of guys that are coming in that he can just take right under his wing, and then he can be the Zuccarello to them as they get going at the NHL level.
Yeah, we would love to see it, and that's another leadership step for Kirill Kaprizov too. I mean, he's still a young guy himself, but for him to check on the prospects, and I saw that he was texting with Yurov. That's huge, and makes those guys know that they, they're part of the group, even if they're from far away, and so that's awesome to for Kirill to do that.
There are plenty of other guys to get to, but I think to finish, we'll just kind of look at the timelines again. We'll rehash the timelines for the guys that are right on the doorstep and the guys who are maybe in that next wave. Just see when we can expect them to assist this team. So plenty more prospect discussion coming up on today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. On the YouTube crowd, you may notice that the graphic quality has been upped. Finally figured out the laptop and the internet situation, and so we're hoping that this is the first in a series of many moves that are made here over the next few weeks. But appreciate everybody sticking with us, and we've got more on the way. Alex, let's just look and let's just throw some rings out here of timelines for various prospects that are either close, knocking on the door, they may already be in. And so we'll just kind of try to cast our best guesses as to when we'll see some of these players that make up this prospect pool that is widely regarded as the best in the NHL. And I think it starts with the guys who are already here. These are the players that we count as prospects now, but they're going to play, and so they're going to lose that prospect status because they're just turning into regular NHLers. And at least on my list, it's Faber. I would say it's Rossi. And if you want to still consider Addison a prospect, those are the three that would fall into that ring, right?
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and Rossi, I mean, this is the year. If this isn't, if they don't see production, then there's going to be major questions, and so he's going to be given all the opportunity to be on that third line with Foligno, and hopefully he can protect him out there, and we'll see how the summer pays off for him, and it's going to be very interesting. And Addison, he's going to be the quarterback of the power play on PP1, and so we'll see if his defensive ability, on the defensive side of things, if it's up to to par with Dean. If not, he'll be back in the doghouse, and we have a repeat of last season, and hopefully not another trade for a guy like John Klingberg, which turned out to be a nightmare.
You heard the Russo comments, right?
That was, you sent that to me. That was tough. We didn't realize that Klingberg did have injuries too. Hip injury is never, especially for hockey players, not good. But just was not the assessment of Mr. Klingberg was not good. So good luck, Toronto. I'm sure we'll be we'll be seeing all the podcasts, in Toronto talking about John Klingberg this season.
Locked On Leafs, we're here for you. So those are the three. And actually, on the Rossi topic,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm stepping on the touchdown dance of Judd's hockey show, because I know they talked about some lineup tweaks, and so I did not have a chance to listen. So if I'm stepping on their touchdown dance, I sincerely apologize. What if we throw Rossi in on the top line, put Hartman on the third line with Foligno and Gaudreau, let that kind of marinate into a more defensive-oriented line, and just see what Rossi's got, and if he has the ability to cut it between Kaprizov and Zuccarello to start the season. I mean, we had Victor Rask in there for a while,
Right.
and I would say Rossi is probably more talented offensively than Rask, and I don't think that's a preposterous statement at all. Sizable gap, in fact. They've had a bunch of guys that have just been pedestrian in that spot, and I don't think it's going to hurt anything, because then that has to be one of the big themes of this season, is that you just have to figure it out, and that's going to involve putting him in spots like that and just going with it to see if it works. Because if you're just going to plug him in on the fourth line and just leave him there and expect that that's going to get it done, it will not.
No,
It just
no.
won't.
That's why I said the third line. But it would be to plug him on the first line. That would be very interesting, just because he'd be going up against the Anže Kopitars, McDavids, Ryan O'Reilly's, probably Connor Bedard, just these top end, first line centers that have, Bedard's not, it would be his, rookie year, but, that just elites of the elites, in the Western Conference on these top line centers. It would be interesting, but like you said, throw him in there, I guess, and see how it is. Ryan Hartman's, he's more of a grinder to begin with. He's not your prototypical top line center, but it's just, with the Wild, it's just kind of worked.
It works.
Yeah, it works. Yeah. So, yeah, that'd be very interesting. But like you said, fourth line, 8-9 minutes? That does not do anything for him, for sure.
No, that's not worthwhile for him at all. So those are the guys that are here. They're right here, right now. And so then you can go out from there, and the guys who are maybe a year off. Now, this is interesting because this depends on a goalie situation that's a little fluid at the moment. Jesper Wallstedt is going to get probably the entire year at Iowa again. And I would imagine at that point, then he is not going to be at the NHL level anymore. I would imagine he'll be an NHL guy beyond that year, whether he is a 1B, whether he's a 1, whatever he is, he will be at the NHL level beyond that. And so I'm putting him in the 1 year out category. And I think that is probably it, because I love the Ohgren confidence. I think it's probably 2 years for him, probably 2 years for Yurov.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very possible that, and to throw guys like Adam Beckman in as well, I think his best opportunity to get a job like consistently with this team is going to be next season. So throw him in the 1 year out category. But I think the big one to watch in that aspect is Wallstedt, because Fleury's going to be gone. So you're going to have a spot for at least a 1B, depending on what happens with Gustafsson. Might have a spot for a 1.
Yeah, it's exciting to have the best goalie prospect in the entire league. I mean, that's you start from the back end, going forward, and if you have the best, watch out. I mean, look at Tampa Bay, Andre Vasilevsky. I mean, he was one of the main reasons why they won the cups that they did. I mean, he was absolutely unbelievable. And so to have that with the Wild coming very soon, it's exciting. Everybody has to be very, very pumped. He brings the full package too. You see him in these like funny interviews and doing everything. He scored the goalie goal. Yeah, he just has all the vibes, and his English is just great too. It's awesome. It's nice to have a goalie that has some personality too.
Yeah, he's a very sharp kid, and he has a killer instinct as a goalie of like, I'm going to get you, and I'm going to make your life miserable for 60 minutes. Like it's refreshing. It's fun to see. He's obviously very talented and showed it at points. The team in front of him didn't help the situation, and he had some ups and downs, but had some very solid play at the AHL level. And so it's not like the expectations for him have lowered any, but it depends on what's going on with this goalie situation. And so I guess the overall point that we're getting at here is that over these next 2 years, this theme that I've come up with that you're going to hear quite often is that the Wild need to use these 2 years to figure out what they have, so that once that $14 million check cashes, they know what they need. So let's see some of those kids. And I did see comments as well as that having those restraints has allowed the Wild to play more of a team-oriented style, which is why I think we haven't seen them blow it up as of yet, is because they want to keep this culture real close, real tight-knit, and just promote from within. You lose some leadership in Matt Dumba and Ryan Reeves. You bring Pat Maroon on a very inexpensive acquisition, and now the expectation is that somebody in-house is going to step up to fill some of that leadership void. And that's just how they're going to continue to do it. And then it will be, okay, we got a shopping list now. Let's go upgrade some of the equipment. Let's go upgrade some of our top 6, whatever we need. Then they have that money, and they have that exact idea of what it's going to take to supplement the roster. That's where we're at.
Yeah, it's very exciting times, and these 2 years are going to go by really fast. And you're going to see a whole bunch of prospects, and the crew that Judd Brackett's been building with Bill Guerin. It's exciting, and the most cool thing about that is all the amount of different like skill sets that they're acquiring now, and it's nice to see that they're drafting some Russians too, because in the past eras of Wild GMs, they just avoided it at all costs. And so they bring just a different element than any of the other players around the world. And it's just their skill, their tenacity. I mean, you take a look at Kirill. I mean, he does not back down from anybody. And
Bulldog.
Yes, and the strength, the lower body. I mean, they prepare their athletes and their hockey players, for the pro game just tremendously. And it's a fun brand of hockey to watch. And so I can't wait to see those guys and the Ohgrens and all the confidence that they bring. It's gonna be fun, and we can't forget the D core of guys that are gonna be coming to Pert and Lambos and O'Rourke. Yeah, it's just these guys are in. Damon Hunt too. He's another guy with personality and flair. Yeah, it's gonna be fun couple of years coming up to see how these guys grow.
Yeah, it's all about seeing what you have over these next couple of seasons. And so that will do it for today's episode. So thank you, as always, for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Wild. If you are a first-time listener, take the time to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new content coming at you through the rest of the offseason. If you're one of the everydayers who tunes in each and every day of the week, we salute you, and we'll see you on tomorrow's episode. We've got new content every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.